You go one day, you can earn 10,000. So of course, certainly there are a little bit better conditions in the cities than in urban areas. Now, if you are going to have a political solution to the urban youth, you must start from the village. Because that's where they come from. Majority. Not all of you are, for instance, none of you are born in an urban area. Most of you are born in the countryside. But you all run here because of the good schools. You run to town because you can access these better services than in the village. So the problems of young people, you must go past where they come from. Stop this rural-urban migration by improving conditions in the rural country. That's the goal rural development. It is this nation needs an education revolution. And I think, with all due respect to the chairman, you have served this regime for very many years. This is where this regime failed. This regime, the National Socialist Movement, had an opportunity to change our education system. This education system we have was not meant for Ugandans. This education system was a colonial system that was meant to produce civil servants to service the colonial machinery. Failure to revolutionize this country. An education system supports the economy. And that's what precisely, that's how the British built. You know, when you go to Europe and you go to America, which are relatively classified, you realize that their education system has so much to do with their economy. The first-class economy. Because education and the economy are related. You are trained to become a useful participant in the economy. And then when you participate in the economy, in turn, that resonates, or that also brings proper results to the overall national good. But with an education system like ours, which is essentially how to train white collar people who speak a little English without producing anything, you will still have a problem. President Museveni has got it wrong, and the nationalists movement. This gentleman have got it so wrong, by the way. I don't know whether somebody can challenge me on this one. You know, they talk about industrialization. Give youth employment by industrializing. 28 years, they're talking about industrialization. Let me tell you one thing. Industrialization can never come without an agricultural revolution. Nowhere has it happened in the world. The Asian tigers we talk about, Indonesia, Malaysia, China, which were at the same level with Uganda in 1965, actually, they had a systematic program of first embarking on an agricultural revolution. And that was the foundation for the industrial revolution in their own country. Today, China is one of the biggest industrialized nations in the world. But look at its history. They were able to reach this peak in 30 years. 30 years. We are talking about 28 years of the national resistance movement. They have not been able to turn the nation around. And they talk about the China, which has embarked on a revolution to where they are in 30 years. Why is the agricultural revolution important before industrialization? Because you know, for a country like Uganda, nearly 82% of the population earns a living from agriculture. Meaning, therefore, if you have got to build a strong base, you have got to put a big proportion of the money you collect in revenue in agricultural investment, in that area where the majority of your people earn a living. And that is where the Asian tigers beat us. Let me give you an example. Between 1965 and 1999, A country like Indonesia was spending 22% of its budget, not even actual budget, but its national revenue on agriculture. 22%. Between 1976 and 1999, a country like Malaysia, which all of you now talk about, oh, those of you want serious programs now run to Malaysia, nice universities to Malaysia, serious products in Malaysia. Malaysia, between 1976 and 1999, was spending 20% of its budget, gross revenue, on agriculture. Why? You've got to put the money where the most people are. Now, when you increase productivity, you increase rural income. When you increase rural income, you now make it attractive for those people who have increased in income to demand other goods. And now that's why your base of industry starts. But you never talk about industrial. That's why you cannot industrialize Uganda in a virtue, as the case has been. You can't. So, the urban problem is a chain reaction. It arises from a point, and the point from which it arises is poor planning and poor national policy. So we have our whole planning upside down. And I think that by way of summary, because you gave me limited time, you never give a man like me 5 minutes only. But by way of summarizing, it is important that in order to tackle some of the issues now affecting, you've got to tackle head-on the critical development challenges in the country. Of course, I have talked about the national youth policy. I don't know whether any of you here has seen a document called Uganda's National Youth Policy. I don't know whether any of you knows the content of such a document. But in any case, how can we have a national youth policy without even having a national land usage policy? Because if you're talking about development, first of all, land is the first resource. But for a nation which doesn't have a land usage policy, how do you expect it to have a national youth policy anyway? By the way, we are demanding too much, I think. I think we are demanding too much. So it is critical that this nation develops a concrete program to help youth out of the problems that they do have. And of course, coupled with that is the grooming and nurturing. There are most countries do nurture young talents. When you talk about all the leaders you admire in the world, they have been groomed, they have been nurtured. Not in a way President Museveni is nurturing his son, Muhoozi. That's not the way we are talking about. But we are talking about a real, deliberate, concrete program of nurturing young people. I have visited a country called Tanzania. Tanzania has got a party which has been in power for over, I think, 40 years. Nearly 50 years. Chama cha Mapinduzi. Chama cha Mapinduzi began as a one-party state. It had a one-party orientation like the original NRM. But along the way it opened. But Chama cha Mapinduzi has got one of the most elaborate leadership nurturing programs. And that's why perhaps Tanzania is stable. Because in Tanzania, even now today, they know who is coming after. Chikwete. Chikwete knew who would lead Tanzania 15 years ago or 20 years ago. And I think this issue of nurturing leaders, young people, this issue of grooming leadership comes along also with stability. You know, well, now we are moving like this, so and so can play this role. For you, Mabikke, you cannot be president, you can be something else. For you, Abed, you may be president, and now this one will be vice. Now for you, Mr. Chibek India, for you, you will be the... Then, you know, this is the kind of thing. But now when you talk about grooming, leaders think of grooming their children, sons and daughters. That's not the grooming we are talking about. Finally, I am very disappointed that the national justice movement has failed to deliver a concrete policy to help youth out of poverty, out of unemployment, out of these poor living conditions. And of course, they have not addressed the basics. Now, failure to address the basics also means failure on delivery. And you know that for me, I am one of the politicians in this country who are on the side which believes that we are now right for regime change. Some people may fear speaking this, but regime change is normal. Every regime comes and goes.
When it expires.
Yes, now this regime, I think has now expired. And that's why I am at pains. I have a problem of giving a solution. It is a regime, a government which must give a solution. Now, in the event of failure, then what's the use of the regime? So I think it is also time for our friends to start saying bye-bye. I think you have now overlived your welcome. And it is time that we get a regime, perhaps young people like Mabikke, myself, I am Lady Matembe. I think we should get another shade of opinion when it should be doing things differently. We want to see, I think yes, we have had something under the national resistance movement, but we demand more. And we should have had better. And it is now time that we look at a different shade of leaders who can usher in changes that will ultimately take the lives of our people, including the young people. I want to thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Micheal Mabikke. They say every system has got its own philosophers and psychologists. And also, wishes will continue to be wished, but it's more than enough to wish them, but you work for them. Now, the solutions to the youth challenges, which the speaker spoke about, I don't know how much you picked, but they will remain challenges, because in order to find a solution, you need to identify the problem. And that those problems need to be clear into the people's head, especially the youth, so that if they have the chance to practice, they can look at it. Anyway, that is for that. And now I have got Dr. Mabikke, President of the People's Democratic Party, mainly to elucidate us on the youth, like the women have run. What is that? Challenges facing. Okay. Oh, he has got some wishful thinking. Okay, let's have it. If you were president, how would you face the challenges of the youth?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen. I knew that Honorable you have problems in reading my topic. Especially if it touches presidency. When I read it also myself, I had difficulties. I started remarking, maybe some Ugandans have started imagining that they missed the opportunity. And maybe others are thinking that it's the right time to begin to think the way Honorable Mabikke suggested. In the People's Development Party where I come from, To us, the youth are very important. Very important. And we believe the strength of any nation can only be measured by the hope it offers its young people. We must harness their energies, aspirations, and empower them to be better people in the future. My talk, my presentation, my speech, I'm just extracting it directly from our manifesto. If you have never had an opportunity to read the best manifesto in the country, I will invite you to do so. The NLM have read. Their problem, they're not good at implementation. If I get an opportunity, I will send you a soft copy. So, to us, if you are going to deal with the challenges of the youth in this country, some of them, they are common even to other segments of the population. One of it is the unemployment. All of us know that the majority of the youth in this country, they are not employed anywhere in a formal job. It's a big problem, and we must, all of us, ensure that we come up with solutions. Of course, as Honorable Mabikke has ably pointed out, the other issue is education, which I think we must overhaul if the country is going to move in the right direction. The other very pertinent issue to us is the issue of moral values. If we are going to move forward as a country, we must be mindful of the moral fabric of this nation, and more so to the segment of the youth. And therefore, I'm going to make suggestions of what I think is the way forward on the youth if I was and if I will be a president. I still have the opportunity. I still have a real opportunity. We must ensure that we have a framework that is going to develop the youth into the desired human resource that we need. This one takes planning. We must know, number one, what do we need? What kind of product do we need in this country? Right now we have 32 universities, probably 33, after the newest one from my friend, Professor Mabikke. There must be around 33 now. We are rolling out so many products. But I always ask myself a question. What products do we need? What degrees, what diplomas? Where are these people we are rolling out going to work? Where is the market? Which market are we training for? Who needs them? Is it Uganda? Is it the East African community? Is it the African continent? Are we training for the international community? What are we training for? It is important as a nation that we understand where we want to go in terms of education and in terms of the products that we are rolling out. We must overhaul the entire education system, right from the elementary, the primary, the nursery schools. You know, it's only in Uganda where students have the longest calendar year. In the US, a student goes to school for only 180 days a year. In Uganda, a student goes to school 253 days a year. This is minus coaching. This is official. It is only in Uganda where my boy, who is 6, has to wake up at 4 to prepare to go to Aga Khan so that he reaches there by 7. It is only in Uganda where such kids come back home in many schools, apart from the one I've talked about, in many schools at 8 in the night. And they have come with a bag of homework. They are busy doing homework. And there is a government in this nation. These are simple things. There is a government. And Ugandans believe they are moving forward. Sunday in Uganda, the school day is very long. The school year is very long. And at the end of the day, we produce kids who cannot do anything else apart from academics. They have not had an opportunity to receive the moral values, to be trained at home, to be trained by the community. They are only at school. You cannot develop a nation that way. Our kids must have opportunity to start home. They must have opportunity to do other things and learn other things. And schools must give that opportunity. I went to school in a rural setting, in my primary school. And we used to leave school maximum by 3. In the senior secondary school, I went at Masaka Secondary School. We used to do half day. Senior 1, senior 3, we could go in the morning. Senior 2, senior 4, we go in the afternoon. But we passed and we are doing well. What is it that changed that the students must start school from 7 to 7 in the evening? They come with homework, they come with everything. I think this must change. These are simple things. We don't need sophisticated specialists in education to understand the problems in the education system. We must change. So I do believe that it is important for us to look at our education in a different way, so that we will produce people who can innovate, people who can think. You can never innovate, you can never think, unless you know the environment around you, not only the classroom environment. So to us in PDP, we believe we must overhaul the entire education system. I don't want to talk about the many other obvious things about the teachers and everyone else. Secondly, we can never help the youth unless we have transferred the right and the preferred moral values to the youth in this country. The people who are of my age and above, there are some spoiled ones in my age, but there are some who have come up in a background that I came up from. We used to hear our fathers talk about their achievements when they served government. And they never talked about the houses they owned. They never talked about the many cars they owned, the many buildings they owned. They talked about the impact. Their legacy was different. Until we go back to that moral fabric that is so important. Today, when a student graduates at the university, in the next 2 years, he must own a big car, V8. He must own a big house, and many times houses. I sleep on the side of Mtinda. Many times I pass on the northern bypass. Sometimes I could branch off, if you know, this international school, so that I come off from the jam on the northern bypass. I used to see Kazinda's house. And I'd never known that this is someone's house. Every time I reach there, I look there and I wonder, which proprietor built a hotel where he does not put a signpost? This was a huge, it is a huge structure. When I saw it in the news, and that is Kazinda's house, I marveled. I marveled. And I'm told by the CIDs who went to check inside there, that for him, instead of building each child a room, he built each child a house inside the house. That's what is inside there. But Kazinda was below me at the university. He was below me. I knew his picture very well. Until we change that moral value, where people think that success is defined by houses, success is defined by the number of cars that you have, Uganda is not about to change. So for us in the PDP, we believe that we must put in place a framework that is going to help us to transfer the necessary moral values to the next generation. And this must begin with a national vision that is shared and agreed on. Recently, we had one which was launched. We have ever had another one by the late Salim Bachu, Vision 2025. Unfortunately, the year had not come by. We came up with a new one. And interestingly also, the president is not alluding to that vision. I listened very well in the State of the Nation address. He only mentioned Vision 2040 once, and probably by mistake. Once in his entire 2-hour speech. So we must come up with an agreed, shared national vision. That is the beginning. And we must also come up with national, what we call national values. National values that are shared. Uganda is a cosmopolitan in terms of ethnicity, but there are things we share. There are values we share. It should be a must for you to go. Chankwan's was a great idea before the NRM came. You must remember that that was UPC idea. That was the UPC idea. It was not the National Resistance Movement. Honorable Kivejinja has been around for him, he knows. Yes, it was a great idea. We need, you know, it was now politicized and it's a partisan thing, but it is important for every student, before you go to college, after senior 4, before you go to university, after senior 6, you go through this system so that you are trained to love your country, to serve your country, and not to steal from your country. That's the best way that we can bring up a population that is going to help serve and love Uganda. We believe that students in the lower classes, senior 4, they should also be involved in community involvement work, in their communities and outside their communities. I had an opportunity for me in HSC. I went to Chigeza High School. It was my option. I'd never been in Chigeza, I'd never been in Kavala. I chose to go and study from there. It gave me a different perspective of Uganda. During Obote 1, Obote 2, every region in this country had the best school. Today you can never pass unless you come to Kampala. And some few urban schools. You can never. This should be the official think tank for a government for the nation, where you look for every above average human resource. In every country, there are thinkers. Not everyone is a thinker. The majority of people are not thinkers. And I can guess even here, there are just few thinkers. Others consume what others think. But we must put a framework that is going to help to identify the thinkers, give them capacity, and be able to utilize their knowledge. That's how nations develop. In Uganda, everyone can think. And that one cannot work. There are people naturally who are above average in terms of brain, in terms of looking at issues. They must be identified by a government in place, given capacity and help, so that we can utilize the knowledge that they have. And we must put in places where these kids and help them. We have lost it all because we don't have the system. We must have a national system to make and he's proud to serve self-made. Many people are very dangerous. Very dangerous. We need people whom we can track their record. And the value system you have, it was transferred from America. Have a track. For me, people whether they want not to work, they always give. They always give way. It is a matter of. I want to call upon you, the youth. It is so that we have the community capacity, knowing that we have the next need in the end. One council, I think I want to watch. And I saw most of these councillors, they are youth. They even don't know how to conduct a meeting. They don't know how to speak in a meeting. But there are people who are supposed to make policies for us in the capital city of Kampala. The capital, I saw some woman was grabbing microphones, I don't know her name, yelling, and I get worried. I get worried. One of the children must be very worried. They must be, because if we want to take over our generation, but we cannot even conduct a meeting. We are shouting, we are yelling, there is no organization at all. And I started to think through, I said, who are these guys that are doing policies? We need to amend that law so that a person they call a counselor must scale up in terms of qualification. Not just speaking everyone. We need to amend the law so that a counselor represents. You haven't seen anyone, but for 28 years, if you have not seen anyone, then you have not done your job. You have not done your job. That means you did it intentionally, or you are doing it intentionally not to see anyone. And I want to end by this wonderful story from my village, where a mother here had a very sick child. They never gave that child the name. This very sick child went, they took her to the hospital many times, and she could not recover. The mom was very worried. But as she was conversing on the village, she was told that there is a traditional doctor in another village who could help heal the sick child. So early morning she set out with the sick child to go and meet the traditional doctor. When she reached there, the traditional doctor welcomed them and said, I will help you. The child will be okay. And he said, let me give you the medicine. And the heir was told that you need to go and identify an anthill where you have never stepped. And all of a sudden, the mother here started crying, weeping. And the traditional doctor said, why are you weeping? I've given you the medicine. He said, the last anthill, I stepped on it last night. I don't have another. Let Uganda not be like that here. You may have stepped on all anthills, but there is one where you have never stepped, and that is Dr. Mabikke. Thank you so much.
That's better. That's better. Not only that innovation, it says I need to be seen so that you are able, so that you can pick things that can be of assistance to you during your time. Because if I'm put down there, whatever I have will be absolutely useless there. So it's good that you put me. Let me thank the President Aspirant, Dr. Mabikke, for his very elaborate presentation. I think we need to take the issues very seriously. One, I have tried to note them down. The need to overhaul the education system. The revert to the old models. Then a national shared vision. Then establishment of common values. And making sure that everybody goes in national service before he goes his throne in the world. And then have a mentoring mechanism. So I think these are good pillars for an aspiring president. And these are, I'm sure, you are not the only one, but everybody here aspires to be president because that's his or her constitutional right. And we must take them as good qualities to follow in our leadership training. Thank you very much, Dr. Mabikke. I hope your presentation will be available to the members, or you are recording it, if you should transcribe it, so that you take up some of those things. You see, I never stop learning. And you know, in the multi-party system for which my colleagues wanted, we talk at each other are not with each other. So maybe some of these ideas have not had the chance to pollute some of our ideas. And therefore, we have continued with a strong must always have it until he withers away. So I think it's a good presentation. And now let's have the one whom you very much know in the form of Micheal Matembe. To summarize. Okay, you are up, you see, the youth, like women, are vulnerable. What should the youth agenda in the country look like? And was the Minister of Youth Gender.
No, please.
So, will give us quite a good experience.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, but I think I can introduce myself properly. I have never been a minister for youth, although I love young people very much. I've never been a minister for gender, although my passion is for gender equality and women's empowerment. But I have ever been a minister for ethics and integrity, and I was responsible for establishing that ministry. So the fact that the Honorable Chairperson knows me with youth and gender shows that I have been effective in that area. And he's not the only one. Even long before I was appointed a minister, wherever I went around, people used to introduce me as the Minister for Gender. Now, having said that, I want to say that I'm very happy to have been invited, as is always the case, to these conferences here of MOVES. And this time, I was given a talk. Usually they call me to talk about gender equality and women's empowerment. At times I think ethics and integrity, but this time they wanted me to talk about the young people. For sure, to be honest, I really love young people. I love young people and women. I love the youth and women. Why do I love them? Because I always want to unite them. I want to unite them to have my passion. Because the young people, remember, we are on a political session. So when we go politics, don't say, hey, these people are here politicking. Because that is what the session is entitled. Political summit.
Yeah.
So we are here to talk about politics. And so I'm supposed to talk about, don't get worried. I'm supposed to talk about the vulnerability of youth. Of course, within the political context. And I want to place it, the current political context in Uganda. Uganda at 50. What is the vulnerability of youth as much as of women? Because the subject says, like women, youth are vulnerable. The youth, together with the women, are vulnerable. What is it that makes them vulnerable? Because they are powerless. They lack resources. They are powerless in terms of resources. What resources do you own when you are youth? When you are to Makerere University, MOVES, or wherever, what resources do you have? You depend on your parents' resources. And I can assure you, people without resources do not even have mouth. They can only have mouth to eat, but mouth to speak, and only to eat what you are given anyway. So they are powerless in terms